Have you ever wondered why sometimes you have this huge amount of energy, this focused, calm, confident energy that is just flowing through you, and you feel it completely in your body, and it doesn't come from food, it doesn't come from the perfect sleep. You just feel this energy and this draw to life, and you feel like you could basically do anything you want. And then there are other times where you don't feel that at all, and in fact you feel the opposite, where you feel like you have no control and you feel like your life is restricted and things are happening to you and you have no pull to life, you have no draw towards doing the things that you want to do. And it's like this heavy feeling that it's inside your heart and you don't know where it's coming from, you don't know why you're feeling it, but you don't feel the same way that you did before. So you guys probably know what I'm talking about on both sides. You probably felt the high of that inspiration and that full life force, but you also felt the low of like losing that, and then this negativity and this restricted emotions inside of you. And so recently I just read this book called Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer, sorry. And it's one of the most transformative books that I have ever read on this topic. And it talks about like, why do we go through these shifts? Why do we at times feel like we're in control and we have this creativity and this life force inside of us? And why do we at times just close and completely lose that? And what causes this to happen, right? And so this is one of the first books that I've read where it explains that in such an easy to understand way, but with so much depth there. And in this video, I'm going to try to convey the main thing that I took away from this book and the main thing you should take away as well. And I highly do recommend you guys go pick this up and read it yourself. I have the Kindle version. You should get the physical one if you want, but it's a really, really good book. I'll also talk about like, not just like the how and why you feel this, but also how to do better, but also the traps of potentially what can go wrong if you do this the wrong way, at least implement this the wrong way. And I'll talk about that from my personal experience. So yeah, that's basically today's video. And so this force, this energy, this whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of words for it. It could be called life force, chi, creativity, passion, charisma, whatever you want to ascribe to that state of being. Basically what Michael says is that this should be the state that you feel pretty much all the time. Like there shouldn't be a reason why you shouldn't be feeling that, where you should not be feeling that state. So you should be in that state all the time. But the thing is that we don't allow ourselves to stay in that state. And so to understand like what's going on, we first need to understand where this energy even comes from. And the answer is it's in your heart. And basically your heart is sort of the energy center of your body. It's where all your emotions flow through. And even though it's not described in science, that's where everything comes from. That's where that positive, creative energy comes from. And it's sort of the energy center that processes all your emotions. And again, the source where everything flows through you. And what you can imagine is just like if you have a water pipe and that pipe gets blocked with a bunch of stuff, not a lot of water can make it through that pipe, right? Like it's going to have a blockage and only a certain amount of flow will go through that pipe. And just like that, our hearts work the same way, is what Singer explains. And basically, just like a pipe can get blocked, your heart can also get blocked. And the more blockages that you have, the harder it is to feel that energy state that I was describing earlier. And so he calls this concept closing. So you block your heart by closing your heart or your mind, and by basically pulling yourself into a restrictive space. And like a common example of this is like, let's just say you're with your partner and you feel love for them. You feel this positive emotion and everything's fine and things are great until they say like 3 or 4 words that you don't like. And for whatever reason, those 3 or 4 words change your state from that feeling of love to something completely different. Now you're closing. Now you feel that heaviness in your heart. Now you feel like you're drawing distant from them. And so a second ago you were fine. A second ago you were feeling love. And then a certain impression came about, a certain sensory input went into your brain, and it completely flipped the way that you were feeling. Now you feel restricted. Now you feel closed. And you basically gave up that emotion entirely. Or it could be like when you're doing your job and you're doing good work and you feel enthusiastic about doing the work. You feel like, you're contributing to something, you're doing good work. And then someone can come along and just make one small comment like, oh, hey, that doesn't look good there. Like, I don't think you did that right. And you completely take that positive emotion that you had of enthusiasm, of creativity, And now you don't want to do anything anymore. You just want to quit, and you feel like your work's unappreciated. So in both of those states, you went from like feeling this high to completely changing in like a matter of like a few minutes. And so this is the concept of closing, which Michael describes throughout the book. And basically under normal circumstances, our state of openness is basically left to like whatever happens around us. It's basically driven by our past experiences. So we're prone to opening our heart and closing our heart based on these past experiences. And what you have to realize is that impressions from the past are still carried within you, and they're carried in your heart. And they get stimulated by different events. So the event is the sensory input that goes into your brain when someone criticizes you or someone says a few set of words you don't like. But those impressions get stimulated by that input. And once you understand this, then you have to ask yourself the question, okay, like, why do we close then? Why do our bodies do this thing where we, step away and we try to push away? And the answer is that basically it has to deal with like keeping the sensitive parts of yourself hidden. We all have our own fears or insecurities, destructive behaviors, whatever we don't want to show to the world, whatever we don't want to show to other people. So we basically hide that away. And those fears and those insecurities are basically things that you're carrying around. They're held in your heart, and those events are triggering that. And when those things trigger, your energy drops. And so he mentions in the book that these patterns are called something in Sanskrit. There's a word for it called samskara. And basically the Sanskrit translation of that is basically an impression from the past. And it's considered basically like one of the most influensive things in your life, or one of the most influential things in your life. And it's basically an impression from the past, or an unfinished energy pattern that you just didn't let run through your body. And guess what? Even though your mind forgets this, even though you might feel bad for a while and then you feel fine, your heart still remembers this. And the thing is, we can trick our minds by distracting ourselves all day. You could just open your phone and you could spend 2 hours just looking at whatever, and you have no reason to feel that emotion again. So our minds can forget, but guess what? You're still carrying that with you. Somewhere deep inside your heart, you're still carrying that emotional baggage, you can say, within you. And so these samskaras build up from our childhood, they build up from our past, they build up from impressions that people left on us. And it's also, one thing to understand, it's also not just negative impressions, it's also positive things. So let's just say you had something really good happen to you in your life. You had a great experience, or you had someone really positive in your life. You also can hold on to that as well. You're also not letting the positive emotions pass through you, and you're holding on and you're clinging, in this case, to something that you don't want to let go of. And that's also the case. It's like you can hold on to the negative, you can push away the negative, which is what a lot of us do. I would say that's like 80% of the cases. But you can also hold on to something positive and cling to that and not let that go. And that's also not fully passing through you. And you end up clinging to it, and you end up living every other experience that you have in the impression that, oh, it's not this experience, if that makes any sense. So in both cases, you're basically not letting energy pass through you, and you're blocking the flow by resisting or clinging. And that's the main point. And so the trick is that our mind can forget, and sometimes you open and close 3-4 times, maybe multiple times on a day-to-day basis. Thing is, like, the mind forgets, but the heart does not forget. And basically your life now has to compete for attention, like with the present moment, with all this other stuff that exists in the back. And so that impression doesn't just sit there quietly, right? Like, it's not like it'll just be there quietly. These are things that will come up to you in your shower. Like when you're having a shower, you're gonna have these thoughts. You're gonna think about something that happened in middle school. Or you'll start just feeling anxious for whatever reason while you're driving on the highway. These things don't just sit there, like they'll pop their head up here and there. And basically what Michael describes in this book is that you get to a point where you had to understand that if you continue to protect yourself, and if you continue to hold on to these things by thinking that you're protecting yourself, you're not really free. And the price that you pay of feeling protected is basically freedom. It's freedom because it takes you away from your present moment. And so what can we do about this, right? Like, what is there to do? Like, what can we do to prevent this? And like, how do we not close, right? And so it's quite simple. There's a very simple way he describes it in the book. And he basically says you stay open by never closing. And that sounds cliche, but it's actually that simple. And when you realize, what you realize is that you just had to make a decision whether you're going to live your life, and are you willing to really stay open as you live your life, or are you willing to close? And what is worth closing over, right? Like that's something to ponder on. Like, are certain events worth closing more over than other events? And the answer that Singer explains is just like, no, there's like nothing worth closing over. Even if the worst thing happens to you, you should not close over that, or you should not allow yourself to close over that. And that's a decision that you had to make. And you just basically need to buy into that idea that there's nothing worth closing over. And so there's a few parts to this, because it's not just as simple as that. The first part that I realize is really about being aware. And it's about being aware of what you're feeling in the moment. And when something happens, when that sensory input hits your brain and those previous emotions start to come up, you have to notice it. And you have to feel that change in your body. It's literally like a physiological change. Like you start to feel this heaviness, you start to close, you start to feel this tightening in your body. Maybe your breathing gets shallow. Like, that's a cue that there is something there that's an old samskara that you're holding on to that is now popping its head back up. So the first thing you have to understand is like, I need to be aware of this, right? And it's not just about identifying the emotions that come up, but it's also the pull that that emotion has on your psyche, on your consciousness, right? Because what you'll notice is that you'll notice like this thing come up, but you'll also notice, oh shit, this has a lot of pull on my consciousness. Like it is a hard thing to ignore. It's taking a lot of my attention. And that's really like where this process of, like healing yourself starts. And once you notice the emotion, then it's about just letting it go. That's what he calls it. It's called letting go. And you just need to let that emotion pass through you. Now, there's a dangerous side to this, which is what I want to get to on like how you can do this the incorrect way, like how you can let go the incorrect way. And I think it's very common when we hear the words let something go that you think of like think positive, or like you've been conditioned to think that, oh, I just need to reframe this in a positive way. And that's actually the opposite. This is a trap that I fell into, is that when something like this would come up, I would try to reframe this as, oh, I should be a better person. I'm going to think about this positively. Let me just think through this and like think about this positively, reframe it in a positive way. That's actually the opposite of what you want to do. That's not letting go. That's actually also pushing it back down, brainwashing yourself that you're thinking that you're letting it go. And this is what I mean by this is a mistake that you can make. And so it doesn't mean that you cover the negative emotion with a positive thought entirely. And it doesn't mean you brainwash yourself. It basically means that you need to let that emotion pass through you. So what you need to do is like when you feel that happening, you need to be glad that this samskara is coming up. There's a chance for me to let this pass through me. And then you just need to relax your heart, like literally just relax your shoulders and just feel that emotion. Like that's the key thing. You just had to feel the emotion. And feeling the emotion is what actually means by letting go. And I don't think that's very clear in the book, but that is basically the main gist of it. Is like, you can't just positively will it away. You need to actually feel that feeling. And sometimes it's a shitty feeling. Again, excuse my language. Sometimes it's a terrible feeling. Sometimes it's you might want to like literally cry. You might tense up. You might get frustrated. You might need to go take a walk, but you need to allow that to pass through you. Because if you try to reframe it positively and you try to say, I'll deal with this later, or I don't want to like deal with this right now, you're going to hold on to this thing and it's going to come up and your brain's going to forget, but your heart's not going to forget. And these things build up, and it's going to explode. And so the whole point of letting go is basically to feel that emotion right there and then. And it means being vulnerable enough to expose that part of yourself, so you can actually feel that emotion. And so I'm very into golf these days, and I'm pretty sure you guys know who Tiger Woods is, and I promise I'll bring this back. But he has this concept, this trick that he uses, and it's very similar to this. And so what happens after he plays a bad hole, or he has a bad kind of like play, is he'll take 10 steps. It's called the 10-step rule. And he'll take 10 steps where he feels that emotion, that frustration, that anger, whatever like negative emotion that he has from that experience right there within those 10 steps. So he'll take the 10 steps, feel that emotion deeply. He might tense up, he might be frustrated. And then after he takes that 10 steps, he says to his brain, okay, I've felt that, I'm gonna let that go, and now I'm just gonna focus on the next thing without worrying about that. And that I think is powerful. And that's exactly what's described in this book, is that you feel the emotion, you let it pass through, you give it that space, and then you just focus on the next thing. Like you can move forward to the next thing without being held in that state. And the main thing that Singer also emphasizes in this book is like, this is not something that you just do once and you're good at it. It's sort of like a habit that you build up. You get accustomed to the process of releasing things and like cleansing your heart. And you're never going to be able to stop the emotions from popping up. There's no human in the world that can do that. All the advanced people are just spiritually advanced people, are just people that have noticed this pattern, that have released and cleansed many times, and are able to just do it, that process, whenever something comes up, because something will eventually come up. Life always brings things your way. And it's better to let it go on the spot, right, as early as possible, than leave it for later. That's just a general rule. Because what you don't want to happen is just this building up, and then it erupts into an action or something that you say to someone, whether it's your partner, your family, your friends, and now you can't undo that, right? Like you've actually taken an action in the physical world based on this stuff that's built up inside of you. And yeah, and that's basically the main concept in the book. He basically says to real spiritual growth is basically comes from learning how to see that process, learning how to not close, and making that decision that nothing is worth closing over. And I highly suggest you guys also read this book. It was definitely one of the most transformative books I've ever read. And there's a lot more concepts that I'll make more videos about, but this is the main thing that's written in that book. But yeah, if you did enjoy this video, feel free to leave a comment down below on a situation where you felt like you didn't react the right way and you closed, and how you would approach that situation differently now that you kind of know this thing and now that you notice the pattern. And also what you'll find is that the first link in the description is a free school community that I've created where you can join, and you'll find like-minded people who are also interested in the same things: personal development, self-help, philosophy. And it'll be like a community where I'll share things. And in there, I will also put my longer notes from this book. And so you'll find that for free down in the description below if you're interested. But yeah, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you watching this, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you.